Yes. All right, so now we are recording. We are now in 11.3, and we'll try to go to chapter 12 by the end of the hour and plus minutes. Okay. Identical agents and graphical analysis of the equilibrium. So in this particular case, essentially all agents will be the same, and there's a bit of an explanation in the previous couple of paragraphs here. But with all agents the same, the aggregate consumption function will look like this. Okay. In equilibrium, agents cannot borrow or save. I think we talked about this prior, so we will skip the whole explanation, but we definitely talked about this. Then savings is equal to 0 in aggregate at this special case. And then that means consumption has to equal output. And similarly, because of 11.1, which is yung market clearing condition, and here, which is your consumption function, in fact, 11.12 is your equilibrium condition already. So you're trying to solve for y as a function of r. Now, if you recall your Econ 101, combinations of y and r, where market clearing in the goods market happens, that's called IS curve. Okay. Of course, here there's a rather boring IS curve because S is 0 and therefore I is 0. So I equals S equals 0. It's still true na IS curve siya. So this is the easiest case for the IS curve, which is just literally Y equals the consumption. Okay. There is an additional equation here for YS. Meron bang YS dito? Wala pa at this point. Not yet. Let me now go to YS, which is this one. Okay. In equilibrium, the economy must be on both the YS and the YD curve. The YD is the desired expenditure, which is again consumption. Okay. Ano ba yung YS? Okay. YS. If the IS curve summarizes the demand side of the economy, showing all R and Y points where income equals expenditure, the supply side of the economy summarizes production, which must equal both income and expenditure in equilibrium. So that's the supply side. S stands for supply. Since we are dealing with an endowment economy where there is no production, this is simple. Generically defined YS. Literally, endowment lang siya, right? It's just a number, 10, 20, whatever. YS is the set of points where R and Y pairs where the agents are behaving optimally, consuming optimally, consistent with the production technology of the economy, which is endowment. Since income is exogenous, YS is just a vertical line at the exogenously given level of income. Y not T? This is shown in figure 11.4. So which is this one. Okay. Now, in equilibrium, the economy must be both on the YD and YS curves. So that means you have this really nice equilibrium picture here, wherein up here you have the standard Keynesian cross drawing, which is this is planned expenditure, if you recall back in Econ 101, or desired expenditure, right, as a function of actual expenditure here. And the equilibrium will be the intersection of the 45-degree line and planned expenditure. At this point, okay, this is just one point along the Keynesian cross. Down here is the IS curve. IS curve is the combination of the real interest rate and GDP, wherein you have equilibrium in the Keynesian cross here, right? So what this means is as you change R, you're going to shift up and down your planned expenditure, which means you're going to move up and down this curve here. Okay. So I think we ended up there. And the only thing that's new essentially is there is also a YS line here, right? And in fact, it's the YS that allows us to finally close the model, right? Because once you have YS, then you have you can now solve for the equilibrium real interest rate R using the IS curve on the one hand and the supply side, which is just the endowment YS here. Okay. Okay, so now let's now that we have this picture, we will use this picture and we will recall the equilibrium condition. Where's the equilibrium condition? Here, okay? And this is essentially the desired or planned expenditure YD, okay? So what's going to happen is I'm now going to shift to the PowerPoint here. And I'm going to try to simplify the exposition a little bit, but feel free, of course, to read the book. But ultimately, if I can summarize, what's going to happen, guys, is you've got this Y, supply, which is your endowment, just a number, equals Y desired. And of course, this is all in T's. Okay, so this is YS equals YD. And then this has to be equal to, at this point, consumption. And consumption is an optimal function. And it's a function of current expenditure, future expenditure, and the real interest rate. So this is essentially what's going to happen in the model here. Hold on. Admit. Okay. Now we can use this. Let's jump back and head for a numerical example. I think a numerical example. This one. Okay. Here's an algebraic example where kaya rin natin dapat i-graph. So we're going to use this algebraic example and we're gonna essentially graph it in a similar way as above. So now you have your Euler equation here, which will give you your consumption function here. So let's write down this consumption function. Here. Okay. Hold on. Then here we will draw. Your consumption function is going to be CT equals, copy lang natin. Correct. Okay. 1/1 plus B YT plus YT plus 1/1 plus RT. Now, hopefully people find this familiar, okay? And it should be. And everyone is able to, determine this or to derive this from a two-period model. Next is total desired expenditure. So if this is your CT, right? Ito, you can actually recall or recast this as YD, T, right? Okay. And then you can do YT. And then up here, of course, is either your CT or your YD. It's the same thing at this point. And then you will start here, right? What is your X or Y, I should say, Y intercept? What's this? This value here, this is 1/1 plus beta times YT plus 1 over, ano pa? 1 plus RT. Diba? Because you're plotting YT down here. So the only things that are not Y, that is not YT is essentially this thing times this thing. Diba? Any questions so far? None? Okay. Next, what else? We're gonna now plot the consumption function. Is it upward or downward sloping? I will repeat the question. Is it upward? Is consumption upward or downward sloping?
Sir, upward po.
Upward. Great. So, ito yung ating, is it a line or a curve? Is it a line or a curve? Should I be curving it or not?
It's a line po, sir.
It's a line. Okay. Anyone can answer. Pasok lang kayo. As in, mag-ano lang kayo and say no. At kahit mag-over, ulit-ulitin lang natin. If you speak over each other, that's totally fine. So here's your consumption function. Correct? Okay. Kasi ito lang siya sa taas. Ito yung consumption function mo. What is the slope of this consumption function? Slope. Ngayon, if you recall, fans of Econ 101 will know that the slope of this one is your marginal propensity to invest? No, to consume. Now, mathematically, what is it then? Get the derivative of this equation with respect to yt. What is it? Okay,
1
question.
over 1 plus beta po.
Okay, so ito na siya. And if you recall, that's in fact we spent some time talking about that, no? The slope of the consumption function and how it's related to 1 over 1 plus beta and how the interpretation is marginal propensity to consume from current income. Next, kung mag-change ang future income, anong mangyayari sa function na to? Magbabago ba yung slope or mag-shift up siya or shift down? Anong mangyayari? Oh, there's a chat. Okay. Sabi ni Charles, MPC. But go ahead, Charles. Just open your mic, okay? Just say, now I want to know what happens if yt plus 1 changes. Will it shift? Will it change the slope? What will happen? Sulit natin yung sinulat kanina ni which is, purahin natin to. Okay, let's balik natin dito. Pura tayo. And then dito, go. Ano mangyayari? One
Sir,
over
the
one.
sir, the line would shift po upward.
Okay. Kung tumaas yung yt plus 1, tataas siya, right? Because the intercept is just this one. It's simple. This is like a number lang. This is just some number, and this is also some number. And then you would, if this were 101, you would do this one, and then you would set yd equals yt, and then your equilibrium would be whatever this is, right? Any questions? Okay, this should be a review of Keynesian cross. Ngayon, mathematically, it's also super easy because well, this one will essentially be equal to ys, and this is again your endowment. Okay, so what's going to happen here essentially, later on we will use this. But right now, all we're going to do is say yt equals 1 over 1 plus beta, yt plus y plus t plus 1 over 1 plus r. Okay. And this is essentially the solution to the Keynesian cross, right? The Keynesian cross solution. Or this is already your IS curve because it will give you combinations of interest rate and output for which y equals yd. So, pwede mo na siyang i-simplify. Okay? In fact, na-simplify na siya dito so hindi na natin masyado gagawin. Ito na siya. Okay? You can simplify it here. Pero gawin na rin natin. Bubuhayin ko siya. Bubuhayin ko to. So, it's just this. Para may space. Okay, erase lang tayo ng board. Okay, so let's do some math. Yt equals 1 over beta plus 1 yt plus 1 over 1 plus r But this one is also over 1 plus beta. So we have the common yt here, so you can move it to the other side. So now you have yt 1 minus 1 over 1 plus beta equals 1 plus t plus 1, I should say, over 1 plus rt times 1 over 1 plus beta. Correct? We're literally just putting the common variables together. Yt, you want to know how yt acts against rt? I mean, ito klaro na siya, right, guys? Because since yt is here in the numerator, and then the rt is down here on the other side in the denominator, pag tumaas tong rt, what happens to yt? Anyone? Pag tumaas si rt, what happens to yt?
It will go down
Sir,
po.
Yes? Taas, baba, up, down, what?
Down po, sir.
Down, right? Correct. Sorry. Naka-eraser siya. Okay. And then, bababa ito. This kasi is constant, so ultimately, you can like move it to the other side. So it doesn't really matter. But dito pa lang, makikita mo na yung negative relationship. Relationship between RT and YT. Which is, what do you call this negative relationship? Combinations of RT and YT, wherein you have equilibrium in Kinchet cross. It's called the IS curve. Or if you wish, in this case, it's actually an IS line. Make sense? Any questions? Let me pause. Ayos? No complaints? Okay. Oops. Okay. So if there are no complaints, let's go back here. This is the simplified version. Okay. And then here you have R versus YT, which is also super clear here, right? Okay. Next, let's have some fun with this model, right? Because right now, we're assuming that all agents are the same, super duper easy, right? So now, I want you guys to play around with this model, which is more akin to more complex models, but this is sort of the easiest version of this possible, okay? So you have to play along. Are you guys ready? Say yes or no. I mean, this is not hard, pero you have to put your head in that space. Are we good? Because now we're doing different endowments. There's a big lesson here actually, and that's why hindi useful pa rin ang representative agent. And that's why it's still super popular, and it's why people might want to use it. Okay, at least start. Okay, so now let us suppose that there are two agents, 1 and 2. Okay? Para-pareho sila ng utility function, right? All agents of the same type are identical. There are L1 type 1 agents and L2 type 2 agents. So L1 and L2, that's the number of type 1 agents, right? So L1 can be a number like 1 million people, right? Or 2 million, right? Okay? So ano yung total population natin dito, guys? Just to make sure everyone's following. What's our total population? It's here. There's no secret. What's our total population?
L po, sir.
Which is the sum of L1 and L2. Critical yun, okay? In fact, the L is just defined to be the sum of L1 and L2. Does that make sense? If there are L1, 1 million type 1, 1 million type 2, ilang households yon? 2 million. Okay, very easy. Now, what's the real difference between these two agents? Si agent of type 1, meron siyang pera in period 1. Meron siyang endowment. Endowment to, right? But in period 2, that person has no endowment. Agents of type 2 are different. Here's your Y2, 0, and your YT of agent 2 is 0, and YT plus 1 of agent 2 is 1. Okay? And recall that this is your, what do you call 11.19? Consumption? 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 Okay. So 11.19 works for both agents. Okay. So babalikan lang natin si 11.19. Diba? Ang nakalagay sa 11.19, and this is something important we should remind ourselves of, consumption today is dependent on income when. And this is something coming from chapter 9, chapter 10. Income consumption today is a function of consumption when.
Sir, income of today and the future po.
Okay, that's an important insight. That means, guys, any of these agents, kung wala kang pera today, you will still want to consume today. Okay? And it's still gonna be based on your income when? The future po. In the future. Okay. So critical yon na just because wala kang income today, that doesn't mean your consumption today is zero. Because meron kang income in the future. Does that make sense? Pero teka lang, di ba kayo mag-reality, mag-sanity check ka muna. Kung, kung totoo yun guys, paano ka magko-consume? Hindi mo ba naisip yun? At this point, kailangan mo na siyang isipin kasi meron kang situation na wala kang income in one period. Right, guys? Before kasi generically, meron kang YT plus 1. May income ka on all periods. And parang nagigets mo naman yun na consumption is a function of all of your stream of income, right? But now, the rubber is really meeting the road. What if wala kang income today? Pero sabi mo yung consumption, gusto mo pa rin mag-consume kasi yung consumption mo is not just a function of income today. So paano mo isa-square yung circle na yun, guys?
Sir, by borrowing from the income of the other households po.
Yes, that's pretty much it. Okay? So that's sort of a secret or a deep insight of this model na kung totoo nga na mahina or wala kang income in any given period, pero meron kang income in the future, essentially guys, parang estudyante ka nito. Parang sinasabi mo, okay, ngayon wala akong pera. Pero alam ko, pag nag-graduate ako, magkaka-YT plus 1 ako bukas. So ganito na lang. Bigyan mo akong pera ngayon, babayaran kita bukas pag pumasok yung YT plus 1 ko. Does that make sense, guys? Ganon yung kwento na nangyayari. Does that make sense? Everyone, actually hindi ko nakikita yung mga pangalan ninyo. So I guess pwede nang mag-thumbs up. Actually, yan, pinalabas ko ulit yung mga icon ng mga mukha ninyo. Does that make sense? That's the reason why essentially income from all over, today, tomorrow, next day, etc. 2 years from now, theoretically, they're all here in your current consumption. Because essentially, you're going to want to keep your consumption steady and during periods na wala kang pera, anong gagawin mo? Manghihiram ka? Does that make sense? Then tomorrow, pagpasok ng pera mo, babayaran mo siya ulit. Okay? Everyone's good with that? Now, dito, it's specifically designed to make it work. Now, you can always make a model wherein that doesn't work because Again, kailangan you have to borrow from somebody. Okay, I think that's what James is saying. Here, specifically, si person 2, siya yung walang pera sa today. Pero merong tao na may pera today, correct? So, dun ka mangungutang. Dun sa may pera today. So, dito, wala, yun, sa inyong dalawa lang kayo naghihiraman, essentially. Sa dalawang mga agent, sa heterogeneous agent. Okay. If you were to do that, and you would then substitute the values of yt and yt plus 1 for both types of agents, you will get the following: 11.20 and 11.21, CT1 and CT2. Can someone interpret CT1 and CT2? So first, when is this consumption happening? Si CT1 tsaka si CT2. Who is consuming what? Nicole, Jessimar, paano? Charles, ano pa ba tao?
Today po yung
Joaquin,
consumption, sir.
CT1 is consumption of who?
Yung labor type 1 po today.
Type 1. But it's today, essential yon. And then si CT2 is consumption of agent 2 also today. Diba? Ano pa yung mga mapapansin natin dito? If RT is greater than 0, who will consume more? And what's the story there? Ano mas malaki? CT1 or CT2?
If RT po is greater than 0, I think CT1 po yung mas magiging malaki.
CT1 yung mas malaki. Kasi si CT1, siya yung may pera today. Hopefully, I mean, that's super intuitive, right? Yung problema ni Agent 2, wala siyang pera today. Manghihiram siya kay Mr. 1. And dahil babayaran niya yun in the future, that's represented by 1 over 1 plus RT. So therefore, mas may babayaran siya. Yung swerte kasi si person 1, meron na siyang endowment na nagising siya nung umaga, meron siyang kakainin, right? But si person 2, babayaran niya yon. Kung kukuha siya from person 1, babayaran niya yon at the rate 1 plus RT. And therefore, if it costs more, then you will consume what? More or less? Less, right? Everyone good with that? Does that make sense? Hope so. Hope that makes sense. Okay. Now, in the future, babaliktad naman yung sitwasyon. So, wag ka masyadong maawa kay person 2. Just right now is nangungutang siya dun sa isa. So, kailangan niyang bayaran. Okay. So, anyway, kung moving on, what is your total aggregate income in period 1? Okay. So, first, nandito siya. Okay. Basahin natin. Si L1 times CT1 plus L2 CT2 equals L1. Now, why is the aggregate income L1? May paliwanag na siya dito, but I want to hear it in your own words. Okay.
Sir, because in the economy today po, yung agent 1 lang po yung may income. So, umiikot lang po yung consumptions and yung mga endowments from the income of agent 1 po.
Correct. Therefore, wala kasing Y2. Walang income si 2 right now, right? Therefore, actually, yung right-hand side dito, guys, is gonna be L1 times YT1. Ano ang YT1? That's 1. Because there are L1 type 1 agents, and each type 1 agent gets 1. Therefore, yung total endowment of type 1 is L1, or the value of the endowment is L1. In real terms to, that literally I mean, if 1 is like a hamburger, this just means L1 hamburgers in the economy, right? So L1 is some sort of consumption good. Yeah. Or Y is some sort of consumption good. So it's gonna be L1 consumption goods. Problema, if you add here plus L2YT2, ano yung YT2? 0. So L2 times 0 is 0. So that's the only reason why the right-hand side doesn't have a function, something from person 2 also. Kasi there really should be a plus or LT something here, but wala. Right? Now, on the left-hand side, hindi mawawala si CT2. Kasi ang sabi nga natin, kahit wala kang pera, gusto mo pa rin mag-consume. So that's why CT2 is not 0. Unlike here on the right-hand side. Now, YT2 is 0. Is that clear to everyone? Okay, hopefully that's good. That's very clear. So what I'd want you to do actually is yung punuin niyo yung pagkukulang dito. You can write L2 something times 0. My God, ang pangit ng aking handwriting. Yeah, parang ganyan. Merong L2 times 0 dito sa right-hand side. Okay. Now, given this, so if you are fine with that, you plug in CT1 and you plug in CT2 here, and then you fix the math, right? Then you will get 11.23. You will note that 11.23 is identical to 11.18 when all agents are identical, since L2 is literally YT plus 1. So this is your income in the future. And 11.18, that's just palitan mo lang yung L2 with YT plus 1, and then ito L1 with YT. Okay. So it's still gonna be an IS curve, but this time it's gonna have L here, right? Because L1 is basically the income today. And the only people with income, like we said, are agents, agent 1. Okay. Next, let's think about it in terms of savings. Okay. So babalik tayo dun sa C, T1, and CT2. But now, anong nawala sa CT2? Dati meron ditong ano? Ano yung CT2 dati? Meron siyang 1 over 1 plus R. But then, according to the IS curve, there's a relationship between R, L2, and L1. So you want to remove the endogenous variable, which is RT, and then plug the RT, replace or substitute out the RT. And if you do that, it's going to be CT2 equals beta over 1 plus beta L1 over L2. Okay? So, pansinin nyo na baliktad. L1 over L2 na siya. Okay? Kasi this used to be 1 over 1 plus R. So, it's the inverse of this one. So, imbes na 1 over B, magiging beta. Imbes na L2 over L1, it's gonna be L1 over L2. Next, you can use this to see how much agents of each type borrower save in equilibrium. The saving function for a generic household is S equals Y minus C. So hopefully people remember what this means. Here specifically, wala kang investment or wala kang other things to do with your money other than to consume or to save. So literally, you just decide how much to consume, right? And then you get the difference between your endowment and that's your savings. Okay. Now, ST1 is equal to this thing, 1 minus 1 over beta plus 1. Okay. So just to make sure everyone gets it, in time t today, agent 1 is getting an endowment of 1. Okay. This is a per household savings function, by the way. So you have L1. Ito, time, you have to multiply this with L1, which we will do later. You'll see. So this is a 1 here. This is your income of this person. And then minus 1 over 1 plus beta, which is your consumption. And if you do that, it's going to be beta over 1 plus beta. What is happening naman with the savings of 2? Okay. Note that what is the income of agent 2 in time period t? It's 0. So there should be a 0 here, right? Instead of a 1, there should be a 0 here, right? So you can imagine writing a 0 here. Then minus, again, it's minus consumption, which is minus this one. right? Which is this one. So hopefully everyone has followed 11.26, 11.27, coming from 11.24 and 11.25. This naman is your aggregate saving, okay? Because now you have L1 units of agent 1, L2 units, or not units, count, number of households of agent 2 times the saving per household of agent 2. And then all you have to do is put them together. So this, it becomes, once you substitute ST1 and ST2, it becomes these two things. But note what happens. L2 cancels with this L2 down here. And then you have the same beta over 1 plus beta, beta over 1 plus beta on both sides. So you will get L1 minus L1 essentially, and that's going to be 0. Aggregate saving is 0, but individual saving and borrowing is not. Okay. Agents of type 1 save, while agents of type 2 borrow in period T. Okay. So these households would like to smooth their consumption relative to their income. So their income is really wild. So today is 0 money, tomorrow you have all the money. Okay. But if that's the case, you'd want to make sure you have a smooth consumption relative to your income. Type 1 are natural savers and type 2 are natural borrowers. Okay. There's a beneficial exchange because they're different. They have different endowments. Okay. Now, this next part, which I will skip, okay, basically tells you that you could have a different combination of income between agent 1 and 2. And as long as this restriction holds, the total number will not change. Your total L will not change. You can manipulate or redistribute, not manipulate, redistribute income between type 1 agents and then type 2 agents. So dito, hindi na siya 0-0. Right? Si type 1 will have most of its income here. And type 2 will have relatively small income in the current period. Okay. But still, that doesn't change your IS curve and your total savings. Your IS curve still looks like 11.38, which is identical to 11.23. So the only thing that matters here for the IS curve is the relative size of L2 versus L1. Okay. Or the aggregate endowments in both setups, L2 and then L1. So this is saying that as long as you can borrow and lend perfectly at an interest rate that from your perspective you cannot control. Remember, that's called perfect competition, right? You can borrow and lend at a given real interest rate RT for any value, and you will not change that RT. Given that this market exists, you can basically whatever the distribution of income across the different agents, it doesn't matter for the IS relationship, the R and YT relationship. Okay. So this reveals this crucial point. This motivates the use of representative agent models in macro. As long as agents can freely borrow and lend for a given R that is constant or it's exogenous to the borrowers and lenders, the distribution of endowments is irrelevant for equilibrium values of aggregate prices and quantities. So this is an example of complete markets, wherein that's the focus of most of our course here. Moving forward in macro, of course, lahat ng mga insights of newer, more difficult models will come from the fact that you have an incomplete market, okay, of different ways, right? Different ways. There are different ways for markets to be incomplete here. But an example of that is when agents cannot freely trade intertemporally or across with each other. And then if that's the case, then distributions of income will start to matter to equilibrium results. So I'll pause here to ask if there are any questions. This is the simplest ISLM model, and everyone should make sure we sort of are on the same page. The rest of the chapters moving forward will one by one incorporate the rest of the cast of the IS, right? The cast of the IS will happen to be investment and government spending. So it's gonna happen, guys. They're gonna add to it. But ultimately it's still gonna be the same line that we've seen in Econ 101. But now the difference is the I and the consumption and investment will be an equilibrium situation. Any questions? And feel free, you have to review the questions here for review and try to answer the end of chapter questions here as a way to check if you're good with the material. Speaking of good with the material, I have graded half of the homework. Meron lang akong isang interesting, curious point. Well, I don't know. Two observations. First, a lot of people still don't really care about presentation and about making the arguments clear. So this will matter to your grades. Having a nice sheet of paper will also really help. It doesn't have to be a big one, but a solid, nice piece of paper would be good. The other one is, other than aesthetics, is in the data set prepare underscore data. A lot of people tend to be super general. Like prepared data is about preparing the data and putting together three different data sets. Essentially, yun yung sagot, right? But since you have the code, then you have the paper, then you should be able to explicitly write kung ano talaga yung point ng prepare underscore data, right? Which the point is there are not just three different data sets. That's always true in any project. But what's so special about the three data sets here, guys? Which a few people mentioned, some people mentioned, but not everyone. What's special about the three data sets? Which leads to the actual point, one of the strengths of the paper, or one of the ways in which it sort of buttresses its point. What are the three data sets? Ganun na lang. What are the three data sets? May nag-chat ba? Okay. I can be heard, right? So what are the three data sets?
Sir,
Yeah.
PWT, tapos MAD and WDI.
Okay. MAD is Madison, right? So what's so special about those three? What are you really collecting? Not some random macro data. Because some people will write, we're putting together the macro data together. Parang ganun. Nah, that's not true. What's so special about those three data sets?
Sir, if I remember correctly po, it's the GDP per capita data set of various countries po.
Oh, pero you're still, I'm sorry. Ikaw ba si, trying to connect. Ikaw ba si James?
Yes po, sir.
Totoong GDP per capita data, but you still haven't answered the question. Kung GDP per capita, bakit tatlo ang data set, James? Di ba isa lang dapat yun? Bakit tatlo? Di ka ba nagtataka doon, James? Or anyone, Charles, Jesse Mar, kung isang variable lang ang gusto mo, bakit tatlo? Di ba kayo curious about that? Bakit tatlo? Anyone? Nicole? Jem? Bakit tatlo? Zoe? And that's the point of the paper, kaya siya tatlo. Kayo, I guess, I mean, this shouldn't really be a hard question. Like, kayo, sa inyong life, if you wanted something, I don't know, like something important, um, why pick from three different sources as opposed to just one?
Sir, kasi baka po kulang po yung isang source, tapos yung iba
No, it's
pong
not about
sources.
kulang. Meron na siya. Hindi kulang. I mean, let's say hindi issue yung quantity. You can literally buy it from Makati, from Parañaque, from Quezon City. But why would you choose to buy it in three different places? Or buy from three different stores? Did you naman experience it? Have you ever tried to look for something important and wanted to get it or needed to get it from three different places?
Sir, parang maybe because Patel wanted to create his regression as accurate as possible po.
No, it's not about accuracy. I mean, once you have the number, you can just regress it. But bakit accuracy when you just grab the data set from somewhere, run the regression, it will give you a number, right? Or mag-calculate ka. Baka may inisip kang accuracy. What is the relationship between accuracy and getting it from three different places? Sige, paliwanag pa. Baka, I mean, I guess it's accuracy, but it's not really directly accuracy. What is it? Para bang, nabalitaan niyo ba yung chocolate? I'm gonna run afield a little bit. But have you guys heard the story about dahil nagmamahal si chocolate, yung source or yung kind ng chocolate na ginagamit ng mga ibang chocolate companies, iba na siya? Hindi mo nabalitaan yun. Kasi lumalabas sa mga newsfeed ko yun. Like for instance, because mahal na yung chocolate, Snickers, ano ba? Reese's Pieces, mga ganun ba? Hindi na sila actual chocolate pero milk chocolate na lang siya. Okay, maybe none of you care about chocolate. um, anyway, you get something from multiple places kung different places would have different versions of something. Does that make sense? Yeah, would have different versions of something. So going back to some sort, if you're selling chocolate, for instance, yung supplier mo, pag nagbago ka ng supplier, baka iba na yung lasa nung kung anong bebenta mo. Maybe that makes sense to you guys. Does that make sense? I mean, some of you guys know businesses or come from families who are into business, right? Or sourcing and selling different things. Does that ring true to everyone that your supplier, who you buy from, will matter, right? So in this case, it's also the same thing that you're getting essentially the same idea or same product, which is a measure of GDP, but iba-iba. Hindi ka ba nagtataka na iba-iba ang GDP per capita na makukuha mo from the three different data sets? Yun yung una kong reaction actually nung nakita ko yun. And when I started doing empirical work, generally speaking, your actual variables will change depending kung saan mo sila nakuha. Doesn't that blow your mind? And the reason is actually nothing nefarious. It's really because they're doing something a little different from everyone else. These variables are ultimately estimated and imputed. Does that make sense? You guys remember 101, right? When we studied macro statistics. That in a sense, there's a little bit of guesswork and a little bit of statistical estimation. Do you guys remember that? Hello? Yes? Okay, so there is in GDP. So depending on the source, okay? Iba-iba, potentially iba-iba yan. This is especially true, guys, if you're going for really old GDP, like 50s, 60s, because back in the day, not all countries would have the same quality control, and therefore their estimates are less reliable, essentially. So when these people, like say Madison, and in particular is an expert in like older like vintages of GDP, they would tend to grab these initial estimates from the different countries and pass it through their own filter so that it will change the numbers. So is everyone hearing me? So that's why when you're doing economic research, you have to tell us where you get the data, and that will like pin down like not just the reliability of it, but the fact that are your results robust depending on the exact source of the data. Does that make sense? And that's ultimately what Patel, Subramanian is trying to do. That since the only thing that they're curious about really is growth, right, and GDP per capita. So ang kailangan nila is an estimate of GDP per capita, right? So what would make your results more convincing? If you grab your numbers, which again is different depending on the data set. Okay. I mean, you guys, you should inspect the actual data. I've shared the data from the replication, right? Iba-iba yung mga number nila. And depending on and Patel's point is that it doesn't matter where you get it. It doesn't matter the fact that iba-iba yung mga number. The results are still the same across all of these different data sets, even though all of these different data sets have the same or different numbers. Are the numbers the same or different? They're different, right? So does this make sense to you guys na mas kampante ka sa result ng econometric work when you're looking at all the different data sources? The numbers are strictly speaking different numbers. Therefore, your estimates are strictly speaking different estimates. If you look at the graph, iba-iba yung mga betas, no? Kahit na para-pareho lang yung mga start date, end date, etc. Iba-iba yung mga beta. So hopefully, and again, this is something that I'm hopefully trying to awaken in you, like the sense that we're talking about GDP, right? Which makes you think na iisa lang yun. But the reality is, hindi siya iisa. It's a number that people are trying to figure out, but you can have different approaches in calculating it. Does that make sense, everyone? And therefore, there are different numbers. So it's not like, so that's one of the differences between, say, physics and economics. And that in physics, there's a chance to get really, really accurate, and for different researchers and different approaches to come up with something that's really close to each other. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you guys watched Project Hail Mary. One of the key jokes there is, what's the speed of light? Does anyone know the speed of light? Okay, then you can just say what the speed of light is, right? So the speed of light doesn't matter if Madison gives it to you or World Bank gives it to you, right? It's gonna be the same speed of light. Right. So a lot of people sort of missed that part, that you're getting the same variable from three different places. And that's the one of the key contributions actually of this thing. That a lot of papers in the past were just happy to use just one source. Any questions about that part, about the three different data sets issue? Everyone sort of understands it now, why it's important, what the contribution of that is to the actual paper. Okay. All right, so I'm done with that half, and meron pang kalahati. Hopefully, I'll be done grading the rest of it by today or tomorrow, and then I'll be uploading the scores But things are, other than those small things, that's not really a small thing, it's a major thing. But everyone essentially was able to do everything that the homework asked to do, right? Which is to explain this and that and so on. So everything is better now, with especially with the state of art. Yung the other one I have not seen yet. Okay, let me just remove my Bluetooth kasi nag-battery low siya. Hello, can I still be heard?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, great. I just removed my speaker, my Bluetooth speaker. All right. So now we will continue, spend the 20 something minutes for the next part here, which is chapter 12. Okay. So now we're going to move into something more complete, right? We're going to do production finally. We're going to leave endowments behind to a certain extent. We're gonna do labor demand, investment, and then labor supply. So this, I think, is one of the most important chapters after chapter 9. Okay, because these ones really differentiate, say, a ManQ or an Econ 11 approach to something that moves forward and something that's more realistic or something that's closer to the research uh, frontier. Okay. But it's still accessible. Now, we're talking about firms. Okay, so we're gonna look at the microeconomic underpinnings of the firm. So in this particular case, a firm uses a production function and transforms inputs into outputs. Okay, inputs into outputs. So in the solo growth model and so on, we had an aggregate production function. Now we are going to have per firm production functions. Okay. And here we're going to say that there's a representative firm. So you can imagine multiple firms, but they all have the same technology. Okay. The usefulness of this approach in 12.1 is we're going to embed now investment into profit maximizing decisions of a firm. Okay. So you will ultimately get something like an investment function coming from similar to an Econ 101 type treatment. But now it's going to be coming from this profit max situation. And what I like about this 12 is it's a little involved pero magigets nyo agad kung ano mangyayari. Okay. Now, let's do 12.1. A lot of this should be a review. You've seen a lot of this before. This is your production function here. It's CRS, constant returns to scale. We've seen that before. You have these first derivatives here, which are positive, and you have the second derivatives, which are negative. Okay. You have the cross derivative, which is positive. This means that more capital raises the marginal product of labor and vice versa. So all of these are the solo assumptions also for the production function. And yes, we're thinking about CRS also. If you bump up K and N by gamma, then it's as if you're bumping up the whole thing by gamma. An example here would be Cobb-Douglas, which again we will return to for simplicity's sake, and alpha will be less than 1. And if you recall, alpha will be the share of capital in output. Here you've got your production function as a function of n being labor. And what do you notice here? This black line is increasing, but it's increasing at a decreasing rate because the marginal product of labor is falling. Okay. If A rises like this or K goes up, then your marginal product or your output will rise and your marginal product of labor will also rise. It's not shown here, the marginal product, because the marginal product is the slope of your production function at given points. What else? Here we've got let's remind ourselves again of what this is from the solo model. So it's always going to be the same thing, right? The solo model, like I said, is pretty much a complete macro model already. And it's the same concept called the law of motion for capital will be used and reused over Econ 101, Econ 103. So this is just saying that your capital stock tomorrow is going to be a function of whatever's left today, okay? And then whatever you decide to add to your capital stock. That's your investment IT. Note that the firm is endowed with some existing capital KT. So by the time period T comes around, that is the present, you have inherited essentially some existing capital stock KT. In period T, you don't do anything about capital stock. That's what you've got. Okay. But in period T, you get to decide how much labor you want to hire. So NT is a decision point in period T, but KT is not. In period T, though, you get to decide how much capital to add. So in period T, IT is your decision also. Okay? So investment constitutes expenditure by the firm on new capital, and it will be available in the future. So pag nag-invest ka today at time T, kailan mo siya mararamdaman? Not today, but tomorrow in time T plus 1. The other cute thing about this model here is this. We assume that the firm must borrow funds from a financial intermediary to fund investment. The cost of borrowing is RT, which is the same interest rate faced by the household. Let BIT denote the borrowing by the firm to finance its investment. And you can assume that BIT equals IT, so that all of investment expenditure must be financed by borrowing. Okay. So now we're adding this layer pa in addition to the decision to invest here. If you want to invest, you must use B, which is coming from borrowing from, say, an outside source, right? If you borrow, babayaran mo rin siya with an interest rate R. And that interest rate happens to be the same as the interest rate in Chapter 9 and Chapter 10. Kung ano man yun. Okay? It's RT. Now, in period T, the firm's profit is the difference between its revenue, Y, and its payment to labor, WT and T. And this profit is returned to the household as a dividend, D. So this D stands for dividend. And dividend is just the difference between your output and how much you pay your workers. Okay. So I have a question for you guys. Based on the story that we've been telling so far, what happened to yung investment? Bakit in period T, this is your profit? Wala ka bang babayaran in period T when it comes to investment? What's the answer to that? The answer is wala. Kaya wala siya dyan sa 12.4. So the question then becomes, bakit ka walang babayaran in period T? Anyone? Elisha? Zoe? Christophem? Joaquin? Anyone? Ito si 12.4, guys. This is your profit today. This is your dividend D. Instead of profit, we're going to call it dividend D. This is what's going to go back to the household. The household owns the firm. Yung babayaran mo lang according to this, ano lang ang babayaran mo according to 12.4?
Wait, is this wage times labor or something?
Yes. That's called your labor expense, correct, guys?
Yes.
So that's the only thing you're paying for. That means once you've sold your YT, you just pay your people, and then meron kang tira, and that's gonna go back to the household as a dividend. The question is, what's happening with investment? Are you not paying for that? Libre ba yun? The answer is, hindi siya libre. Pero hindi mo siya babayaran today. Why are you not paying for it today? Now, this is related to actually the earlier problem. In the earlier problem, agent 2, may pera ba siya today? Wala. Gusto ba niyang mag-consume today kahit na wala siyang pera today? Yes. Paano niya Anong gagawin niya ni Agent 2? Paano siya magko-consume today?
Nagbaborrow po, sir.
Yes, that person will borrow. But an agent 2 will not pay for it immediately. Napansin niyo ba yan? Agent 2 will not pay for it immediately. When will agent 2 actually pay for it?
In the future period po.
In the future period. Okay? So that's crucial na mag-gets niyo yun. Right? That's why dito sa profit today, wala kang interest payment, diba? Wala kang kahit anong ganun. Yan. Usually dapat ganun, may ganun, right? If you were studying accounting, may ganun, may interest payment, depreciation payment, and so on, right? But here in this arguably, very macro view of it, if you borrow today, you will pay for it completely tomorrow, and at the same interest as the households will pay for it, right? So right now, this BI here, it's essentially not paid for today. Okay, but you will use your entire BI to invest, and therefore you will add your capital stock tomorrow. But you won't pay for it today. Wala siya dito. Next, in period T plus 1. So now we're in the future. Okay, well, we're now in the next period. The firm will face the same capital accumulation, 12.3, but now everything is moved forward. Right? Now it's, ano to? KT plus? In T plus 1, ano to? KT
Law
plus?
of wait, is this law of motion?
Yes, law of motion. Tomorrow in T plus 1, ano na to? KT plus?
2?
2 equals investment when? TP plus 1.
1.
That's, diba? You're already in period T plus 1, right? So the investment is your decision in T plus 1. So eto siya. And then you're carrying over capital from T plus 1, which is, again, wala ka ng choice doon. Whatever carries over, that's what you're gonna get, right? So yeah, you're in T plus 1 now. You don't want to have any capital left over in KT and T plus 2. Therefore, your KT plus 2, this one here, will be 0 in the future. So you're optimally deciding your investment will essentially be equal to negative 1 minus delta KT plus 1. Okay. So let's think about what this means. If your investment is a negative number, how can you think about that in terms of your consumption? Okay, so I'm just going to go back here, right? Just to make sure people get what I'm saying. Okay. So if this is your ink, wow, what happened to this? Oh yeah, okay. Paano ba to? We'll go here. If this is your Y, nako, yung drawing pala. If this is your Y equals CT plus, ayaw niya, plus IT. Is everyone familiar with this? Your income, what can you do with your income? What can you do with your income? You can
You can
either
either consume.
consume or invest. Pwede ring save. But wala na. Sorry, nawala yun. Oh, that's weird. Hold on. Okay. So this is T. So you can either consume or invest. Now, if this is a negative number, less than 0, right? What do you know about your consumption? Can it be higher or smaller than before? It's going to be higher, right? If this is a negative number, then suddenly your consumption can be greater than your income. So this is one of the earliest insights that we had. If this is negative, then suddenly consumption can go up. Okay, so that's one interpretation. The other interpretation is this, and that's actually a pretty straightforward interpretation. Remember, pagdating ng T plus 1, meron kang hawak na KT plus 1 units of capital. Again, this is something that you just inherited, right? So what this is saying is, this KT plus 1 units of capital, at the end of the period, you will only get 1 minus delta of it. So yung mangyayari is ibebenta mo siya, guys. Okay, i-convert mo yung KT, as you can see, investment, investment, and consumption. You can essentially convert investment into consumption, right? 1:1 yung relationship nila. So you could, if you lowered your investment, you can increase your consumption. And that's essentially what's happening here. You're selling your capital stock and turning it into consumption. Okay. Because end of life na siya. And period T+1, you're done. So anything that you've got, any assets that you have, you just sell it and then convert it into consumption. Any questions? Okay. So it's the same thing as before. Wala kang gustong assets at the end of your life. You just want to consume everything. So in the future, your dividend return to the household will be now the following. Okay. The DT+1 here, right? This DT+1. This is your income of the household. Ano yung sources ng income ng household, guys? What's the first one? What's the first element here? What's this one? Isn't that familiar to people? That's just why T+1 equals F of, I can't do it.
The production function.
Why T+1? Yeah, it's just the production function, diba? K T+1 and then NT+1, right? So you are going to use the capital that you've got here, and then you're gonna use your labor. Okay, then you're gonna use it to produce YT+1, right? So that's what this is about. That's what ano sabi? That's what oh. Binura ko ba yung okay, there you go. And that's what this is about, right? You're using this is the coming from your production function here. Okay? In fact, isulat ko na lang siya. Here's what I'll do. This is so important that I want to like spend the last few minutes talking about this. So I'm just gonna bring this here. Okay. Oh, guys. Okay. So this is essentially, so i-drawing natin siya. So this is your profit. Okay. Another way to view it, the book calls it a dividend. Okay. What do you call this one? This guy. This is your output coming from your production, everyone? Function. Ano yung itsura ng production function? You've got your F, you've got your K, T+1, and then you've got your N, T+1. Then usually there's a technology here as well, T+1. Does that make sense, guys? Meaning your profit will essentially come from what you produce, right? Then you sell what you produce. What's this next term here? What's this one?
Law of motion.
Nope, not the law of motion. But remember, in time T+1, meron kang hawak na capital. So once nagamit mo na yung capital mo to produce output, you can still use the capital by selling it. Correct? So this is, in fact, what this is negative investment, correct? Oops. It's negative investment. Ugh, I hate this thing. This is the negative investment, which is positive. Do you guys remember that thing that we had discussed? That at the end of the life of the firm, which is T plus 1, whatever capital you've got, ibebenta mo na lang siya. Right? And then you can turn that into something that you can consume. So it's a source of income, essentially. Is everyone clear about the sources of income? What's the first source? What's the first source? Production, everyone? Function. Right? Which is also the same thing as in period 1. Production function rin siya. It's the same thing as in period T plus 1. Okay? But in T plus 2, in the future, there's a second source, which is selling your capital stock, KT plus 1. Okay? Because wala ka ng T plus 2, wala ka ng buhay next period. So you're just gonna convert your capital into consumption. Any questions? Everyone got that? The two sources of income in period T plus 1? Now, what about these guys? These are not your sources of income. What do you call that? What do you call these two? Principally because they come in with a negative number here, right? Negative sila. So, what do you call something that comes in negative? Yes, anyone? Was there someone? Anyone? Guys, profit lang to. Do you guys remember profit? This is like dividend or profit or dividend. So anything with a plus, is that good for you or bad? For the firm, is it good or bad? There's a chat. It's good. Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself so that it's easier. Also, so that the recording can get it. So if it's a negative, what does that mean? These are negative.
It's a
These come
cost.
in negative. Yes, they're costs. That's it. So what are the two costs? What's the first cost here? What's this one?
Wages paid po to labor.
Yes,
One.
wage bill. When? When is this wage bill being paid? Tomorrow in T plus 1, right? So every period, you decide how many people to hire, and that's how much you pay them. Correct? What about this one? What about this guy? What's this one?
That's the borrowings pa with interest that you have to pay.
Yes, this is your paying off the loan, right? Paying off the loan. Right? You're paying not just the B, which is what's called the principal, but you're also paying what? R and then B, which is your interest payments. Correct, everyone? Everyone's following? So that's it. We've got the good stuff here in front, and then the things that you have to pay here. Whatever is left, you bring it home. Okay. And then, I guess we'll end here. The firm, this 2-period firm, is just gonna maximize this thing, which is the D, your dividend today, your present dividend, and then the present value of your future dividends. And your future dividend will be 12.5 up here. Okay. And then once you plug in stuff, it's gonna be 12.7 here, which has two things. First, this is your dividend today. This thing is your dividend today. And then this one here is your dividend when? Tomorrow. Okay. There is just the restriction that here's actually the complete maximization problem. It's this one, which is just your dividend today plus 1 over R dividend tomorrow, subject to 12.9. What's 12.9? Someone already said it. I think si Christopher. What is this? KT plus 1 equals IT plus 1 minus...
Law of motion.
Yes, the law of motion for capital. Kailangan mong sundin yun. Kasi this maximization is for today and tomorrow. Right? And what's the second constraint? That you are financing your investment through what is B? Bonds or your borrowing. Right? For which wala kang babayaran today, pero kukumpletuhin mo yung bayad mo tomorrow. Right? Wala kang babayaran today, pero tomorrow you're gonna pay all of it back. All right, so we can end here in 12.10. Actually, this is the hardest part. Understanding, I would say that if you are gonna go to the exam thinking about the firm problem, 12.8, 12.9, 12.10, this is the thing that you're supposed to write down and explain. Essentially explaining that this is your first period dividend, and then this is your second period dividend. Dividends happen to be profits that go to or go back to the household. Okay. And then on Thursday, by the way, this is also the link for Thursday. So please do that link. We're still going to do it in the afternoon, 2:30 to 4. And then we will finish this chapter 12 on Thursday also. Okay. This looks complicated, but actually it's not. It's going to read down to something that's straightforward. And we're going to generate what's called an investment function from this, which will now, you will now have, instead of just consumption, you will have investment also. So, mabubuo mo na yung PE, yung planned expenditure from Econ 101. Okay, so let me end here. We will definitely do that on Thursday. Any questions? I am going to process this video now, and in about 20-30 minutes, it's going to be uploaded, and the link will be sa Uble also. I'll do that first before continuing.
Wait, sir.
Sorry, was there a question?
What did you say po about Thursday? Online po ulit?
Online
Possibly.
ulit. Ito lang ang link. Same link. I will remind everyone that it's the same link, pero it's gonna be the same link on Thursday. Any other questions? I will upload this video in about 30 minutes. The link will be in Uble as well of the uploaded video. If there are no further questions, I'm gonna stop sharing, and then I'm gonna open my cam, and I'm gonna say thank you, and see you later. See you on Thursday. Bye.
Thank you, sir.